Got things to do.
It's uploading.
It says webinar is now streaming live on YouTube.
Yep, let's do that. I'm glad we're on YouTube so it'll be live so everybody can hear what I got to say.
All right, and we are recording. And let me get Michael
Okay,
in.
you ready?
Trying to get Michael in. All right. Sure I didn't miss anybody else.
Nancy, you ready?
We are recording, yes.
Okay. I call this council meeting of March 16th, 2021 to order at 7:32 p.m. Will we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the city clerk please read the Open Public Meetings Act?
This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. Notice of this meeting was included in a notice sent to the Record and the Star Ledger and advertised in said newspapers on January 9th, 2021, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as the required notices under the statute. A copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Please take notice that in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act and JSA 10:4-6 et seq. and Local Finance Notice 2020-21, new emergency regulations, remote public meetings held during a declared emergency, issued by the Local Finance Board on September 24th, 2020, and NJAC 5:39-1, Emergency Remote Meeting Protocol for Local Public Bodies, establishing standard protocols, the City Council of the City of Englewood adopted Resolution Number 001-01-04-21, authorizing the City of Englewood's schedule of council meetings for 2021 to be held remotely via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to participate in this meeting may do so by calling or clicking on the link below at 7:30 p.m. Please see link on our website, or by dialing 929-205-6099. The meeting ID for this meeting is 838-4213-4446, and the passcode is 706327. Individuals calling into this number will be able to fully participate in the meeting, including providing public comment. Public comments may be submitted by 3 p.m. on the date of the meeting, either through written letter or email to meeting@cityofenglewood.org. All written comments shall be read during the public forum portion of the meeting and shall be subject to the same time limitations for public speaking. Duplicative comments shall be noted for the record and summarized. The agenda for the meeting can be found on the city's website at www.cityofenglewood.org. A separate meeting will be used if closed session is required. Proper notice having been given, the municipal clerk is directed to include the statement in the minutes of this meeting. And just for the record, we are attempting or testing live streaming our meeting to YouTube tonight. We'll see how that goes.
Okay. Can we do the roll call, please, Nancy?
Councilman Cohen?
Here.
Councilman Hamer?
Here.
Councilwoman Marin?
Here.
Councilman Rosenzweig?
Here.
Council President Cobb.
Here.
Also present is Mayor Michael Wilds, City Attorney Bill Bailey, City Manager Sonia Alves Viveros.
First on the agenda, a motion to approve minutes of previous meetings. Approve resolution 088 for regular meetings of October 27th, 2020, workshop meetings October 13th, 2020, November 10th, 2020, special meetings March 26th, 2020, September 17th, 2020, September 29th, 2020, and December the 14th, 2020. We need a motion and a second to approve these minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any questions? Nope. Roll call, Yancy.
Councilman Cohen?
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin?
Abstain.
Councilman Rosenzweig?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, which minutes are these again?
You can't vote on these minutes.
Okay, so I can't second and I can't vote. I'm sorry.
That's right.
I apologize.
Bill, I believe he could second just to get the motion, just to get it moving.
I don't think so.
I think it's cleaner if he doesn't.
He doesn't,
Maybe
right.
someone else could just make the second.
I'll take that. I'll second it.
Thanks.
Do we have to do a revote or we're good?
No, it's okay.
Okay. All right, and then Council President Cobb.
Yes. I declare the motion carried and the minutes duly approved. Next, we have bills and claims. Resolution 089 in the amount of $1,582,928.99. We need a motion to approve and a second.
So moved.
Second,
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Judy.
There's an item of, for books for
Yep.
$15,000. I was
Yep.
just curious, what kind of books are we buying?
I don't know if Mr. Kaufman can answer that question. Mr. Kaufman,
Yes,
It's on page 4.
can you answer, are you able to answer this question on page 4?
about books.
Yes,
It's a large amount of money, so.
it's $15,000
Yeah, the
at the bottom of the
library.
page.
Yeah, the library usually. I don't question when they buy books.
Oh, it's
There-
for the library. I didn't.
Yeah, it's for the library. If you look on the left, it says library. Look at the left of the
Okay.
sheet.
I thought they had their own budget. I'm sorry. I'm learning.
Ms. Marin, they do, and so that's an allocated amount that they get through the consortium.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Kaufman, on page 1 of 6, $6,758. It says 2021 Employee Assistance Program, but it says Bergen County Department of Health Services. What is,
Yeah.
what is
That's
that?
that's one of the things when employees have issues, they could.
I'll speak to that. It's an
Okay.
assistance program that we have, and it's offered through the county health services.
Mhm.
It's a yearly thing that we purchase.
Okay,
It's sort of an intervention program, an assistance program for employees who need additional or inquire initially for some evaluation.
okay. All right. So while I'm here, and I know Mr. Jenkins is probably here, we have an invoice for 2020 for salt for $18,861.18. My question is twofold. How often do we buy? Do we buy it in supply so we have it? Number one. And number two, I know there was a point in time that for the county roads, the county kind of gave us an allocation of salt. Did we get that this year?
So I can, Mr. Jenkins can speak, but also just to add to that, because of the consistency in the snowstorms recently, we did get depleted. And for a point in time there were 10 days that we weren't able to get salt. So that bill that you're referring to was actually from a state vendor from Morton. So that was for additional salt. We do try to keep it at least near to maximum, but he can speak to that. So it just so happened that this year we had to purchase it, given the consistency of the storms.
Okay.
Nancy, do you want to let Mr. Jenkins in there?
What I did, but it wasn't him.
I think he needs to unmute.
Okay. Why does it keep going to the, okay. Android, you have to unmute. There we go.
Okay, yes, I just unmuted.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yes, yes, because we like Sonia said, Councilman, we depleted one time all of my salt that I had here. So what we did, the county does reimburse us for county, for plowing county roads, and we get reimbursed. But then we were we was empty at my shed and things, so we had to buy extra salt to replenish.
Okay, cool. All right. On page 4 of 6, we have a charge there for $9,000. William Sokos retainer for the health department. Are you familiar with that, Mr. Kaufman? Do you know, or Sonia, do you know?
I'm sorry, you said page 6?
I'm not sure. William Lucas?
4 of 6. 4 of
4
6.
of 6.
4 of 6, yeah.
I'd have to follow up. I'm not sure what that one's about. William Lucas. Unless that's for the consulting services for the rebuild of the health department. That's the only thing I can think of, but I'll look into that. I'll let you know.
He's general counsel to the Board of Health, so.
Oh,
He's
is
the
that what it
attorney,
is?
yeah. He's the attorney, so it's the
Right.
attorney's retainer.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
And the last one I have, we have one for $15,540. It says grooming and lining services. Tri-County property maintenance.
Mr. Jenkins, you can probably speak to
Franz
that.
or Franz. Franz or
Yes, what that is, Councilman, that's for grooming and lining services. That's what we're doing for this year for the new fields that we had. Refurnish all my clay fields that we had refurnished and redone. So that's a contract we have with a company to make sure those fields stay prepped and lined and everything for them to be available for the residents, the residents and the teams to play.
So, Mr. Jenkins, we've worked very hard to get these fields ready at the Herring Field. So people should understand the investment and on the uptaking that we are invested in our properties.
Yes.
So people need to understand that, so they know where the energy is being put in our commitment to our ball fields for our young folks to play on.
Yes, sir.
And that includes the Herring Fields, and that includes the other fields as well. Let me ask you, are the ones are they going to also take care of the ones in McKay Park as well? Yeah,
the clay field in McKay Park, yes.
Okay.
Not the turf field, the clay field, all my clay fields, yes.
And Mr. Volsi, I know he's on, and he knows I'm going to ask him the $1 million question. When are we going to get started on the turf field? Since we're talking about that.
We are looking to get the bids out this spring, and hopefully get it started this year and get it done.
So we have a pretty healthy inventory of fields that are going to be available for the residents of the city of Englewood this spring, right, gentlemen?
Yes,
I'm gonna be honest with you. We're gonna have some fields that are gonna be worked on.
But we already have the 4 diamonds up there at the Herring Field that is really in good shape and hasn't been in use in a long time, where people are going to get a bang for their buck in terms of that. So if people are ready to play, they can play up there in those fields there. We invested a lot in there, so for our youth to play. So I think we're going in the right direction with these fields and other things. All right. Okay. Yes, sir.
Councilman, I also want to say, we're working with us with my teams and things with, my recreation director. She helps me, the uses of the field. So that's also so we can maintain them and things. So they're well maintained, so they're not overused, so we can take care of them.
Yep. No. We know that. So we just want to make sure that, the residents understand that we've invested in these fields to making these fields back to what they used to be and that they're available for their use. And we are working on some other fields that will be available for their use. And all the parks throughout the city of Englewood will be available, and they will be spruced up very nice, as your team is doing that right now, as I saw them cleaning out McKay Park as well. So we have a dedicated team to do that. So thank you, Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Volsi.
Excuse me, Council President.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick point on that note. Since we were having the discussion, and I know this isn't the time for it, but perhaps at our workshop meeting in April, we can have a short presentation just so that the public is made fully aware of what's going on and the readiness of the fields and the work that's gone into it.
Yep, we will do that. We'll put that on there. Yancy, you make a note of that, please. And we got a whole lot of things that we're doing that we're going to put on there that's going on here that people need to be advised of, and that we've championed, and the work that the department heads along with Mr. Volsi has. I don't know whose phone that is, but hopefully we can get that. But anyway, we got a vote to take here. So,
Mr. Cobb, I believe Ms. Sonia Alves has, sorry. Alves.
Yes.
Mr. Cobb, I just wanted to check that for the presentation, you'd like Ms. Simons to be present as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we're gonna let's roll that out the way, because she is ultimately facilitating some of the recreation activity, all the recreation activities. So she should be a part of that, and we can have her and Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Volsi talk about the facilities along with that as well, and what we're doing, what we're going to do, what's in progress, and things of that nature.
Okay, we have started internal meetings about looking at a target date of mid-April, so we'll have more information for everybody at that workshop meeting.
And I want, and possibly Mr. Federico to be there for protocols for COVID, right?
Okay.
So we want to have that. So whenever we kind of go back to some sense of normalcy, we need to have some protocols in there. So we protect one another while they're out there playing, so we can continue to play. So we'll have all that. So we'll have time, but by the next workshop meeting, as Councilman Hamer is, we're gonna do that. All right. So we need a motion and a second for bills and claims.
So moved. Second.
Yancy, please.
Okay, Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilman Hamer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin,
yes,
Councilman Rosenzweig,
Yes.
Council President Cobb.
Yes, I declare the motion carried and bills and claims duly approved. Next, well, we have special presentations, but before we go there, Mr. Bailey, I have asked the city manager to speak to us on two topics. And so can we do this right now, Mr. Bailey, or what do we have to do?
Yeah, unless there's any objection, you can do that.
Okay. I don't hear any objections. So, Sonia?
Okay, I just wanted to be clear. The first topic I'd like to cover is the PSC&G follow-up to the residents as the first one, and then the second one is with regard to the stimulus. Mr. Kaufman can go into that along with his report that he provided to the council members. I also have the chief here because I'd like to just provide some coverage with regard to break-ins, recent break-ins that have occurred.
Yep.
And so if that is okay, all right.
It's okay. We
Okay.
here are going to be fully transparent counsel here. So we're going to give the information and the facts. So you may begin.
Okay. So first, I'd like to let everybody know and reassure everyone that we did have an internal meeting with PSC&G that included myself, Mr. Volsi, and several players with PSC&G that work within the gas division, and of course, our regional public affairs person. they are fully committed to communicating and continuing the communication avenues with us. They've reassured us that, and since then, they have provided us with more detailed updates, and Mr. Volsi can also attest to that, that we're now getting significant reports, more than just we're here and it's an emergency. So I just wanted to let everybody know with regard to Broad Avenue. So as everybody knows, it's a pretty serious project because of the ongoing gas smell. They've right now completed 30 joints, and they have 12 more to complete. What typically happens, they can do, Franz, I believe it was 2 per,
That's correct.
right, 2 per
2
day.
joints a day.
Right, 2 joints per day, pending weather, of course. So, you know, you're looking at, it could potentially be 3 weeks, or it could be 6 weeks, something to that effect, depending on where these things are. But they will not leave unless those things are fully completed. In addition to that, there's a huge main that needs replacement that they're trying to work to get done. It takes a lot of steps on their part to also cover to make sure that they're able to do this. And they've assured us that they're trying to fight to actually just get the entire main complete, because that would probably relieve a lot of the other issues. And just to add to that, there are several other utilities underneath on Broad Ave that have become a lot harder to do these replacements. So part of that is following up with the water company, the sewer, things like that. So that takes some time. But the point is that we felt confident, and Franz, you can also speak to that their communication will be weekly, and they have been. Actually, they've been updating us every other day since we met last week. With regard to permits, other than communicating with police, which they typically do automatically for traffic, they're also going to let us know simultaneously. So we feel that going forward, and we made sure that there's some accountability here, because it's not enough that they come in and they act on an emergency, but also that we let the public know why they're there and for potentially how long they're going to be there. So we'll provide that once we get an update from them on major projects. So I can certainly outline this in a communication effort to the community, what the Broad Ave looks like, and also the area of Nickelback Road. So there are a couple of areas that are in play here. So Franz, do you have anything to add?
Just to enforce what you just said. I mean, since our meeting with PSCNG, they have been a lot more responsive. What I just want the council to be aware of, as well as the public, is it is a big task to get any mains replaced on Broad Avenue. Broad Avenue is filled with a lot of infrastructure, a lot of underground utilities. PSCNG alone has 3 mains running down Broad Avenue. So there's a struggle to find spacing to put other piping in the road there. But they are committed to move this forward. The biggest take I got out of the meeting is their commitment to actually replace the main along Broad Avenue there, which would obviously turn into less repairs, less reasons for them to be out there, and essentially eliminate the yearly visit that we get from PSCNG to repair the joints. That's going to take some doing. They're pushing on it. I'm staying on top of them, trying to communicate, trying to make sure that we're kept in the loop. And we're pushing to get this done as quickly as possible. I've made them aware of what our plans are for Broad Avenue, what the concerns are, et cetera. So they're aware of the urgency out there. And they've pushed to see if they can get this done this year. Now, there may be some gap between what they're doing now and actually the replacement of the main that they're trying to iron out. But once all the problems are ironed out, they will give us a solid schedule. And when we get that, we'll share it, obviously, with the governing body to let everybody know what's happening and when it will be happening out there.
So, Sonia, you mentioned that you're going to be communicating with us frequently. Is that something you're going to post? Is that something you're going to release as a press release, or what vehicle are you going to plan to use so people know where to go to get this information?
It'll be placed on the website, part of
Mhm.
any sort of news release that we put out,
Mhm.
and it'll be posted on our social media accounts. So a part of this too, I just wanted to reiterate while I have everyone here, is that there is a process too that PSC&G works through, like for example, with light outages and how to report those things. So while we have an internal system to work through them, we want to make sure that the public also knows how to communicate with PSC&G and what avenues to take, because that is the only way that they can start going through their list of things that are inadequate per se. So for example, if we're going down East Palisades Avenue and we see a bunch of lights off, we'll make a note and make sure that they're aware. And there's typically a 3-day turnaround. So one of the huge projects we'll have, and we'll work with DPW, is to go down those major streets, including other streets, of course, to make sure that there are fewer outages, of course. Right now, I know the time change it's a little better, but nonetheless, I think it's important for the safety of everybody that we have lights working.
Mhm. Okay. All right. And then you mentioned something about Knickerbocker Road. Where's that? What's going on there?
Yeah, that's. I think you may have misspoken. There are other issues that are going on. I don't know if anyone was aware on Van Brunt Street. It was shut down for a little bit yesterday. So between United Water, I should say Suez, between Suez and PSC&G, there's a lot of road work that they have to take care of. A lot of infrastructures are old and falling apart. So they're trying to stay on top of it. My biggest concern with them is making sure that they get into roadways before we mill and pave, so they don't come back and rip up our new pavements after we pave. But we are working with both utilities, trying to stay as informed as possible, trying to stay on top of them, and we will notify everyone of anything that changes or any update to their schedules or any major projects that are coming down the pipe.
Sonia, what's next?
Next, the chief is here, and he's going to speak to with regard to break-ins.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hi.
As I've reported previously, we did have a host of burglaries that were going on in and about the area. We had kind of tied that into an organized group of individuals that we're still actively investigating as far as their involvement and actions within our city and throughout the county. Most recent, we had one Friday evening, which was a burglary that was interrupted by the one of the occupants of the home. We do not believe that this is related in any way, shape, or form to the other ongoing investigations that we had going on into the burglaries that had occurred. We believe this is a isolated incident that these two individuals potentially targeted this house for a specific reason, which we're still trying to determine if that is or is not the case. They did leave the house with some valuables and a vehicle. We were subsequently able to track the vehicle down in upstate New York. The New York State Police and other New York jurisdictions were involved, and subsequently they were taken into custody and are currently incarcerated, pending extradition back to New Jersey for the charges we've lodged against them. But I can assure you this had nothing to do with the other organized group. This was a isolated incident. The individuals are currently in custody, and we will be pursuing charges against them in the near future, working with the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office and the New York State District Attorney's Office.
Anything else, Chief?
No, that's it. Again, just to reiterate, everybody was safe. Nobody was harmed in any of the incidents as of recent. So that was the positive thing that occurred out of the incident.
Out of body cameras.
Body cameras have been deployed as of March 1st. They're out in the field. The officers who were out on patrol, extra duty, are wearing the body cameras, and we are still making some adjustments, getting used to the equipment, seeing how it's integratable with our mobile video cameras, which seems to be working fairly well. And we will be tweaking the equipment and the policies as necessary.
Okay. Sonia, who's next? I think the chief is done.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
The next person that I have, and Michael will talk about the stimulus and what that means. We've got some preliminary reports on the total amount and exactly what's going to be considered, but we do not have updated information on the regulations themselves. So Michael, if you could just go over your finance report also while you're talking stimulus.
Sure. I filed with the state the 2020 unaudited financial statement, annual financial statement. At the year end, the city's surplus was 6.6 million as compared to the prior year surplus balance of 5.7 million.
6.6 million.
But keep in mind that it includes $1.1 million of COVID special emergency authorization that the council approved in December of last year.
Right.
This authorization was used to offset the shortfall of miscellaneous revenues of around $825,000 that we incurred last year. Currently, if we keep that special emergency, it will be raised as an appropriation in the 2022 to 2026 budget for in equal installments of $220,000. Prior to year end, I discussed with the council that I have the ability to transfer $500,000 from the unspent 2019 budget appropriations into the city's terminal leave account. This account is used to fund the cost of accumulated sick and vacation days that the employees have that is payable to them upon retirement. Our liability is around $7 to $8 million. At year end, we had a $475,000 reserve. That's without transferring the $500,000. If I added the $500,000, our surplus balance would be reduced from 6.6 million to $6.1 million.
With the terminal leave, Mr. Kaufman, would you say that the process that we have in place now is one that's very helpful for us in funding and taking care of these terminal leave payments?
Yes. Before we did this a couple of years ago, we were doing lower amounts, 300,000, 400,000. Right. Now we have a good amount that covers it. It never hurts to have a reserve,
right? Just
in case one year, you have a whole bunch of firefighters or police officers retiring, and then that could come out to or chiefs, it could come out to a lot of money.
Yep. Go ahead.
If the council wants to transfer the additional $500,000, our auditor can make the adjustment in the 2020 audit when they do the audit, which is usually in May or June. So we have some time to see what's going to happen with the 2020 revenues. I'm going to talk about that now.
Let's get that on the calendar sooner than later to have that conversation. Okay.
Yeah, as you may be aware, the federal government has recently approved the COVID stimulus package. Mm-hmm. Part of that law is to provide aid directly to local governments. The city's preliminary distribution is around 2.7 million. Originally, there was a NewJersey.com article that had 5.3, but I called up the senator, and they said that amount now is 2.7 million. So it's less than what they said. They lowered all the amounts to the municipalities. So we'll be getting around 2.7 million. I'm still awaiting guidance from the state as to what can be used, but there's a good chance that the aid could be used because the federal government already said to offset revenues. So last year we had an $825,000 shortfall of revenues. So part of that 2.7, if we could use it to cover that 800,000 of shortfall of revenues, our surplus will then go up by the $800,000, and we'll be able to fund if the council wants. It'll be a lot easier to fund the unaccumulated balances. So we could also, this will also eliminate the need to fund the special emergency appropriation to fund that we would need to fund on future city budgets. So we could cancel the $1.1 million appropriation that we did in December also, if we receive this money. Since the state has not issued final budgetary regulations, I recommend that we defer the introduction of the 2021 budget until we have, until the state lets us know what's going on. Right now, we could do it in April. I was on a call, a webinar with the state. They might be extending even the introduction date. Right now, it's the first meeting of April. They might even extend that if they don't tell us what the rules are with the stimulus money, because it could affect the budget for this year.
Well,
and that's.
If we have to have a special meeting to just address that, we will do that then, if it falls in between one of our meetings, so.
But Michael, you can introduce and then just amend, can't you?
Yes.
Just to be on the safe side.
You could do that and amend, but then if you change over a certain amount, if it's 1% of the total, if it's 10% of appropriation line, then you have to re-advertise. So it could get more complicated. We could if we have to.
Okay.
But the state might extend it anyway, that we don't.
And if they don't extend it, we can put an extra meeting on the calendar, right?
It's the first meeting in April, so.
Right.
So, okay, that's what I'm saying. We can focus on that. Okay.
We have 3 weeks, so hopefully they should come out with something in the next, week or two. So.
Yeah, both of our associations are on top of this, so we've been, and we attended a pretty good webinar from the state last Friday. So they're working on it with the legislatures and with the board, the LFN board, to see if they could extend the introductions.
Well, and I just want to be clear, there hasn't been any guidance yet, but there will be some guidance at some point to tell us exactly how we could use this money.
Exactly.
Correct.
Right. So and we have to follow that guidance. So, okay.
Right.
More to come. That's right. Just want to make that clear so everybody knows it's not just like we got money to spend. We have to follow the rules here.
Right. I don't think that they're looking for any special projects. They're looking more to offset some of these losses that many municipalities
during COVID.
Right.
In which case, it'll be good for us because we could just eliminate the special emergency we did, and we don't have to worry about future years, an extra $220,000 in the budget.
Right. We clean up a bill, so to speak. All right. Anything else, Sonia?
Anyone has questions about it, they could ask now.
Can I ask something?
Judy, go ahead.
Just a curiosity, the amount that was reported originally was 5.4 or something like that. It went down to 2.4. How did that error occur? Do you have any idea what happened to that? It's just
2.7. When I spoke to the senator's staff, he just said it got reduced. He didn't tell me the reasoning behind it or anything. I don't know because the NJ.com had 5.7, and then I asked him why to go so 5.3. I said, why to go so low? He just said they amended it or something.
Everybody's in half. That sounds like what they did.
Yeah,
it's a little strange. Oh.
You can only use it for certain things anyway, so I don't know if we are going to come up with that. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay, just curious. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Kaufman? If not, Sonia, you got anybody else from your team?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah. So we can move on to the special presentations.
Sure.
So we have special presentation resolution 090-03-16-21 employee recognition resolution. Deborah Baldwin. How do you want to proceed on this? Do we want to vote on it first and then move on, or how do we want to do this? Or does somebody wants to go ahead, Sonia, because this is your stuff.
Sure. What I'll do is I'll go through the resolution. So Ms. Deborah Baldwin, she is in the health department, and what I'd like to just say, and this was a recommendation by a department head, that Ms. Baldwin, just to recognize her efforts during COVID in the last year, So among many other departments, of course, but just to recognize her services to the residents. And followed by that, if Ms. Baldwin has any words she'd like to offer to the community, what she's been doing and how she's been doing. But there's many things that happen behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know, like reporting and getting in contact with community members to follow up all of the COVID protocols when it comes to now with the vaccination rollout, testing, things of that nature. So I wanted to give at least a couple of minutes to those employees that are being honored this evening. So, but first I'd like to start with, of course, Ms. Baldwin.
Ms. Baldwin. Is she in?
She is. She just have to unmute herself.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I was supposed to speak now. It's hard to describe what's been going on in the health department, actually. One of the things that I have done throughout it is update the daily public service announcement that's gone out, then post it to our social media and to the city's webpage and send it out via email. When I'm not in the office or available, then I have 2 staff people who follow up on that with me. And they can also check with Jim, if there's any new information that they need. Early on, it was just making sure that everybody had all the most recent information about the virus. Because it was new, the information was changing almost constantly. And now that we're into the vaccination stage, the phone and the email were off the hook when we first opened up a phone line and an email address for people to make inquiries about how to get a vaccine. We are still, as of today, trying to return phone calls from February 8th and 9th before we shut down the phone line. And we currently have about 4,000 emails that are being responded to now that we're just on hold with an automatic reply back saying, we will get to as soon as we can. We have approximately 2,500 people currently on the wait list. Staff are right now going through the waiting list and contacting people back to see whether or not they have already been vaccinated so that we can remove them. We just last week hired an outside agency to provide us with administrative support to do some of these phone calls and to also answer the emails. I'm trying to think of anything else. I mean, people have called me individually, aside from the special line that we had up. And it's interesting, everybody is so anxious who calls about getting vaccinated because of whatever health condition they have or how old they are, or they're calling for their parents or their grandparents. It seems like there's just not enough. And you all know that because you hear, I'm sure you all hear the stories that come out of Washington. And fortunately, there has been a little bit more, but we sometimes wonder if we should have undertaken this vaccination project because we get so little sent to us and there's so many people in need. We are supposed to get another shipment next week. We'll see how much they send us. But 100 at a time for new doses is not nearly enough for the demand. But everybody has been very kind. People are grateful to have people actually contact them in person because nobody else does that. You get an email from the state saying, you can sign up now. Or you get repeated emails saying, we'll get to you soon. And the experience that I've had is that everybody is grateful for the personal contact that they've had. That's about it.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
So,
Excuse me, Council President, just
yes,
before
will you
move on
like
to
that?
the next person, I just want to make a quick comment. Ms. Baldwin is about to leave the city of Englewood in a couple of weeks if we let her do that, but she's scheduled to retire. And I just wanted to say
Thank
to
you.
her, thank you on behalf of a grateful city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Job well done. That's what we'll tell her.
Thank you.
We'll invite you
I'll-
back before then.
I'll
Just
second,
to-
it was a
Thanks, not gonna
pleasure.
let me go, so I still
I'll
have
second that.
projects I have to
Deborah,
work on.
Deborah, it was a pleasure working with you.
You too. I can say I'm not the longest running employee ever, but I have been here long enough to see Mayor Wilds come back and Mr. Rosenberg come back.
Rosenzweig.
Rosenzweig, yes.
All I can say, Deborah, is that you've been solely responsible for thousands upon thousands of people getting married. I'm not going to even allude to any percentages of divorce, but you have seriously gone beyond the call through the decades. I have to just tell you, in recent months with COVID and everything, you didn't miss a beat when it came to all the love. And people needed that to keep, to maintain things. So thank you for your extraordinary stewardship and work. Very deep shoes for anybody to fill.
Thank you.
Yancy, we need a motion to approve 090 and a second.
So moved.
I'll second it. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Cohen.
Yes.
Councilman Hamer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin.
Yes.
Councilman Rosenzweig.
We wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Yes.
Council President Cobb.
Yes. Next, we have another resolution.
We do. We have Mr. Edward Jenkins. He is our DPW director, and also just to piggyback over the year of COVID, DPW has been instrumental in making us all safe for those that have been not just at City Hall, but in various other buildings, even our playgrounds. And just last week, we were able to get City Hall going to make sure we would welcome the public back in yesterday. So I just want to recognize all of his efforts. If it wasn't for his leadership, a lot of these things would not get done. And of course, throw in a few snowstorms. So I just wanted to recognize Mr. Jenkins at this meeting for all of his efforts. So if he has some words he'd like to share with us.
But before he speaks, I would just like to read the resolution into the record. Resolution number 091-03-1621, employee recognition, Edroy Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins, please, you have the floor. Did we lose him?
Councilman, I want to thank Sonia for coming up with this, but you know how I am. I couldn't do none of this without my rank and file that I have there. Starting at the top, they're my top, right? If they didn't come and do their job every day, even with COVID and everything else, they didn't miss a beat. They were there every day working through it. My supervisors, my administrative assistants, my new administrator that I have that works real good with me and helped me out a lot, and my counselor and my taxpayers, they help me out also by some things me and my staff can't see. So I'm gonna keep this short. It's good to recognize me, but I recognize my staff and my taxpayers and my council and my mayor for helping me out to keep me on top of things. And and I'm thankful for my new administrative assistant that helps me tremendously. So I just want to thank all you, okay, for this recognition. And I just want my staff to see. I want know how I am. I like my guys to get that recognition. Okay, it's easy for me to stand up and stay up in the office and delegate, but they're the ones that make sure it gets done. And that's what.
Well, Mr. Jenkins, I'm sure everybody appreciates your efforts. We know how hard it is, and we know how hard you work. And you said something very important. It's teamwork. It's important that people understand and recognize what team does. You know, that can't be lost amongst people. And so I personally thank you for your efforts and continuing congratulations with that.
Thank you.
Mr. Cobb, if I may, Mr. Jenkins is nothing short of the best director of public works we've had in decades. Just the sheer majesty of a pandemic, power outages, trees down, and the city named after trees. It's a tremendous job. The coordination and the deployment between the police, the fire, the ambulance, and just keeping people who are frightened and scared, and responsiveness is just extraordinary. So in the great tradition of Jack Drakeford and a lot of wonderful people who came before all of us, you have, again, done exemplary work, Edward, and we're indebted to you in these historic times.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody else have anything else to say before we move on?
Just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
For the count.
All right. Everybody, for those who didn't say thank you, I say thank you again to you. We have to have a motion for 091 and a second.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Second,
Oh, Judy, I got you. Roll call, Yancy, please.
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilman Hamer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin,
yes.
Councilman Rosenzweig,
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. You make it easy to be a councilman in this town. Yes.
Council President.
Yes. Sonia, do you want to talk a little bit about this? Because I know you tabled it last time about these presentations and how they're going to work or whatever, or you want to hold that for some other time in the future?
These specifically we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, the whole
recognition?
the program that you came up with this employee recognition.
Sure. Well, the way it works is there are recommendations by department heads, and also, but ultimately, it's a final recommendation by me as the city manager. I have a lot of eyes and ears out there, so I want to make sure that we're recognizing employees through various departments, through different ranks. And I thought that given what happened during the pandemic and on the year anniversary, that the DPW and the health department really have pulled through. So what I like to typically do during these presentations is read the resolution, cover the resolution, who these employees are, what department they serve. And then I'd like them to just take a few moments just to talk about how they whatever it is they want to add in terms of like their experience in the city. And of course, because many of these employees have been longstanding employees, and as you all know, for example, Miss Baldwin, longstanding employee, and I think it's worthy to recognize something like that. In addition to Mr. Cobb, at the next meeting, I'd like to, well, before she retires, I'd like to also recognize via resolution retirees.
Yep.
And have a formal presentation as well then.
And Yancy, could you record this? Mr. Jenkins, I had a request with him. We've had a number of folks that retired from DPW, and they have a plaque where they hang their names at, and I'd like to catch up on that to recognize those who've retired, but we didn't continue to add their names to the plaque. And I'd like to have that updated to reflect its services in that particular department. And if there are other departments that have that same kind of placard, I'd like for us to update that in recognition of people's services to the city of Englewood. And I will go to each one of those departments and make sure that we put it on there and present to them, or whatever we need to present, a letter, send it back to those retirees who are with us or to their families, the recognition.
We'll do that. Yancy, these resolutions, what I typically like to see is that they have a formal signature and notarized and put in a nice folder just to hand deliver to the employee, of course, and put in their employee jacket. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So next, we have presentations from Carol Rasha and Stephanie Greco from the North New Jersey Chamber of Commerce, NNJC, formerly Englewood Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, ladies. Do we have to let them in yet?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone, and thank you very much for letting me give a presentation, because I think it's really important that everybody understand what the Chamber of Commerce does. And before I start, I want to tell you, I'm very committed and proud to work in Englewood, and I'm continuing from my family. My grandfather was a civil engineer in Englewood, and he started in 1915. My mom was a teacher at Liberty School for 25 years. So I'm just kind of continuing what they did, and it's really a great place. Now, I just want to start out with what the purpose of the Chamber is. The purpose of the Chamber of Commerce is to promote business, and we work very closely with the businesses and the nonprofit organizations in the city. We also enhance economic and community development. The Englewood Chamber of Commerce has been in existence since 1928. That was something I didn't know until I had to apply for the name change. The Englewood Chamber of Commerce on January 12th expanded, and we're the North New Jersey Chamber of Commerce. And the reason we expanded was because one of the organizations, the individual died, and we expanded into the Gold Coast, which means we took over the waterfront, which is Edgewater, North Bergen, Weehawken, and West New York. Before that, we had the Englewood Chamber of Commerce, Englewood and Englewood Cliffs. And also now, even though there's a Fort Lee Chamber, we have Fort Lee, but it's because of the Gold Coast. We have since expanded again, and we are Leonia, Cresskill, Demarest, Alpine, and Closter. And I think we may also become Tenafly, which is really great because it covers the whole area, and it's a really large area. And everybody in this area shops and goes to places, everywhere. I also want to explain that we have very important relationships, and I don't think everybody realizes it, with Bergen County Economic Development, with the New Jersey Business Action Center, with the Bergen County Small Business Development Center, which is the SBA, and the New Jersey Economic Development Organization. What we do is I send to all of you, but I know you get so many emails, you probably don't look at them. Every day I send out an update of what is going on in New Jersey. And that includes COVID and everything else. And that is a daily thing that comes out Monday through Friday, except on holidays. Another thing that we send out is information from the Small Business Development Center and from anything that's going on that's relevant, particularly to COVID, but COVID more in a business sense or an individual sense. We also send to everybody, because with COVID, everybody's been stuck home, the takeout and delivery of all the restaurants that are doing that. We also did all of the outdoor dining. We had webinars on finance, on real estate, on restaurants. We had the New Jersey Restaurant Association speak. We have also had the Small Business Development Center work with us. We've had Bob Bibbs, who many of you don't know. He's a national retail consultant, and every week we send out information from him about to the retail business about what's going on and to how to help them grow during this period of time. We also send out information from what's going on with the PPP. I think one of the most important things we do is we send out all of the grants. That was the PPP, the stimulus package, and now the American Rescue Plan. We sent out Bergen Cares, and I wanted to share with all of you, 185 businesses got $2.9 million from Bergen Cares. I didn't know that. Bergen County Economic Development called me and said, Carol, that we wanted to tell you that the chamber really played a key role, because when grants come out, we not only notify, but we also then work with them. And if they're having problems with the grants, connect them with people that can help them move forward. The other thing that the chamber does is events. And of course, this year it's been a little bit different than before. But the events that we do, now Englewood does the farmer's market, but with the new North Jersey Chamber, we're going to do a farmer's market in Edgewater and also in Closter. But we are going to have a restaurant week in Englewood, yoga and Pilates, the toy drive where we work with the police and fire. And we're going to start this year, because we have to, starting at Halloween, the shopping for the holiday season, because we have to stay in competition with everybody else that's out there, like Target and Walmart, because they're the ones that pull the money from the town. Some other things that we do that are very important is we do the ribbon cuttings, which is a way for people to find out what's going on. One of the problems that I've had is a lot of the businesses and the restaurants do not want to have ribbon cuttings at this point in time because of the COVID. They just are not comfortable. We did have Fontana di Trevi this week. And we're going to have some other ones. When they come up, you're notified, and I would really like if the city council would participate in the ribbon cuttings. You get all the notices, and I also send out an individual thing to all of you. We're going to do the sidewalk sale again this year. And the other things that we do is we have a very large, we do mega networking. And mega networking includes not only Englewood, but all the communities around, individuals and businesses. The first one we're going to have this year is going to be at LT, which is a bar and restaurant in Riverside Mall. And they have an upstairs. It is going to be a virtual event. They are also now members of the North New Jersey Chamber of Commerce. Another thing that we do is we do advocacy. We support the small business, any legislation that's coming before the legislature, we support it. We supported the support of the increasing liquor license applications, but the chamber is in no way political. We're an advocacy group only on things that really help business. The other service that we provide, and I don't think people know, you all know, is there's a certificate of origin. It's used by a number of organizations in Englewood, like Eagle Paint, Impressions, and what that is, it's for businesses that are exporting goods. They need to have a certificate of origin, and it has to be signed by the Chamber of Commerce. And we sign that for a lot of organizations. We do have a website, Facebook, and Instagram. Our website includes all of the events, the community events, the nonprofit events, and the fundraisers. The Chamber of Commerce keeps all of the events for all of the nonprofits in the county so that it avoids duplication. And one of the things that we found is a lot of people use our website because they want to go there and they want to see what's going on in the county. And most of the nonprofits are actually in the city of Englewood. The other thing that we have on the website is a directory of all our businesses. So you can look up a business by name, by category, and the next thing we're going to have is by location. All of the businesses have a website, and it is up to them to keep all the information on their deals and specials there. All of the businesses can submit any of their specials. They're put on our Facebook and Instagram. The website also has portals, And in the portal is the City of Englewood portal, the portal for Englewood Health, the portal for SID, and the portal for Bergen Pack. That means it's one-stop shopping. So if anybody wants to know what's going on, they go to the website, they can click on the portal, and it takes them right to those locations. I also want to thank SID, Englewood Chamber of Commerce, and now the North Jersey Chamber gets their funding from dues. And the SID provides funding for PR and social media. But I want to be very clear that any funds that SID gives to us is only to go to PR and social media for Englewood. The other thing is we're going to have, we're talking to the libraries, and they agreed to do this, the Age Coalition and the seniors, where there'll be discounts offered to them and whatever business agrees to that. The other thing I just want to touch on is we used to have 2 banners in Englewood. We only have 1 now. We couldn't have the other banner because of the problem with PSE&G. It was their pole. The banners break. The banners cost $1,000 to make, $400 to install and take down. So one of the key things that a lot of towns have, and we have, but needs to be improved, is our marquee. The marquee can actually list 4 things when people drive by, and you can see a lot. So one of the things I'm looking at is getting funding for that, because I know you folks don't have the funding, and I think it's a great way to promote the city, and it won't just be one thing going on. It'll rotate, and it'll be very attractive. And if any of you have seen, they do have the marquees, and I think the best one that I know of right now is the one in Edgewater. I have covered everything that the Chamber of Commerce does, except for we are very involved in the community. We do the parking surveys, and we also are involved in the variances. And I would like to introduce Stephanie Greco. Stephanie Greco has had 30 years of commercial real estate experience, 20 of those years in Englewood. And during that time, she has brought national, regional, and local tenants to Englewood, and she still is. She sits on the North New Jersey Chamber of Commerce, and she provides us with all up-to-date information of what is going on in commercial real estate. Stephanie, are you there? Stephanie, you have to unmute that little red thing on the side. Do you see it? Great. Okay, Stephanie. And thank you all very much for letting us give this presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I just wanted to touch upon the topic of changing zoning in the downtowns and in Englewood in particular. Just to give you some background information, over the years, the downtowns like Englewood have seen the types of retail occupying their streets change. That store lineup is often referred to as the tenant mix of the downtown, or the tenant mix in a shopping center. Prior to COVID, retail was already challenged by the explosion of internet shopping. As a result, certain merchandise categories in brick and mortar locations struggled to survive. The new wave of stores that were leasing space, for the most part, offered services and experiences that the public could not get while sitting in front of their computers. Those active tenants leasing space included the fitness category, with numerous boutique specialties like yoga, spin classes, rowing, Pilates, one-on-one personal training, and gyms, all of which were opening stores rapidly. In the service sector, there were nail and hair salons, spas, eyelash studios, and massage and waxing salons, just to name a few. Stores offering special children's programs, including party venues, pottery making, art classes, dance and music lessons, actively sought locations in downtowns and shopping centers, And of course, restaurants of every type were actively competing for a share of the ever-growing pie as families and individuals were dining out and ordering in more than ever before. Once COVID hit, however, the retail world was dramatically impacted with extended store closings for non-essential services. Restaurants, fitness chains, as well as theaters and entertainment venues were closed for many months. And when they reopened here in New Jersey, they were limited to 25% occupancy. For many of these businesses, they could not survive at 25% occupancy. And many other retailers comprising the non-essential services category were forced to close down permanently. As a result, we've seen a large amount of vacancy in our downtown, which will take a long time to fill unless the downtowns rethink their zoning rules and expand the types of uses permitted in their central business districts. One desirable category that should be allowed to occupy ground floor retail space is the medical category. I'm sure you noticed the growth of the urgent care industry, including subspecialties like PM pediatrics. They were aggressively opening locations pre-COVID. Then with the onset of the pandemic, the urgent care business exploded, particularly with the demand for COVID-19 testing. But post-COVID, general medical uses, including dentistry, medical spas, and physical therapy practices, to name a few, should be allowed to open ground floor offices. These practices will fill many vacant spaces while having the ability to pay full asking rent and attract a broad spectrum of customers to the downtowns on a regular basis. The aging baby boomers, for example, make up a significant portion of these practices' client base, and we know that baby boomers have tremendous disposable income. The changes made to the 2014 city's master plan encourage residential development within the downtown to attract young professionals, young families, empty nesters, and mature singles to live downtown. An expanding residential base supports local restaurants and businesses and helps them survive and thrive. Expanding the permitted uses for the ground floor retail space to include medical brings additional services to the tenant mix of the downtown, which better serves the existing residential population and draws more shoppers from a greater distance to all the downtown businesses. And that's it.
Anybody got any questions for Carol or either Stephanie? I don't see any questions, so thank you so much, Carol.
Charles.
Excuse me.
Charles, can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, Ken.
Is there a concern if medical offices are opened in the downtown that practices might just move their practice from one set of space in the city to another, and there'll be a net zero for the city, but we'll just be trading one landlord for another?
I don't see that as an issue. As you know, so often and more often than not, the medical practices make an enormous investment in building out their suites. And just the cost of that investment alone encourages them to stay long-term, and they write long-term leases. So I believe, for the most part, this will draw new medical practices, new specialties to the downtown and not impact on the existing practices or office space.
Council President,
Yes, yes.
Comment.
Yep.
Stephanie, this is Wayne. One of the things that I'm concerned about is that the best uses for particular properties, and particularly those that have vacancies, aren't or best uses aren't matched with the locations. So if there's any intel that's available to the owners of those properties when they're looking for potential tenants who can stay viable and provide the services that residents need and shoppers need in the city, is if there's a way that intel can be gathered and shared with them, I think that might be very helpful. It may be done already, but if it isn't, I'm hoping that we can set up a means for gathering that information about what needs are current and what the potential best uses are, so that the owners can make the best decisions to help themselves out, but more importantly, help out the residents and shoppers who would patronize those establishments.
It's a very good point, Wayne. The question is how do you reach all of those property owners, and whether they choose to work with an outside consultant or broker like myself to get that kind of information. That's the big challenge, is how do you get to perhaps a number of independent property owners who have their own ideas and have every reason to pursue them.
Well, maybe Stephanie, what we do is put together some kind of a Zoom meeting. We could work with you, me and Councilman Hamer could work with you on something like that, and then invite them in and we have a conversation around that and tell them how important it is for us to have these properties occupied. So how about that? How about if we start something like that?
That would be great.
So why don't we plan to do something like that? So instead of reacting, let's be proactive on that.
Good.
Mr. Cobb?
Yep.
I have a code.
I think Wayne made a very good point about approaching the landlords. And I also want to just chime in. And Carol, I'm very impressed how you reconstituted yourself through COVID, and the emails and everything that you're sending out is really a big source of support to the proprietors. But more to Wayne's point, and this is a question for Stephanie, do you think other professionals, law firms, accountants, other experiential professional businesses would be appropriate in the retail space also? In other words, I have a law firm downtown. I'm on the second floor. If there are vacancies, is it something that's relegated just to medical that has some kind of retail component, like the Eyes and Ear has a medical service, but they also have a retail component? Do you feel that it should have a retail component to be pedestrian?
Well, I think having the retail component enhances the general retail nature, which was traditionally the first choice of how the downtowns like to be merchandised. I mean, they wanted, which is why they precluded medical from the first floor. And they only allowed certain offices that did what was considered a retail business with the public, like banks. But, it just seems to me that there are fewer retailers outside of restaurants and the service industry that are opening businesses today. And I think in an effort to fill the vacancies and continue to draw customers and shoppers to the town, we have to welcome the medical and even the office use.
Yeah, it's there's a privacy element in the world of lawyers, and there's there's cybersecurity for accountants. But if we can master those issues in a way that fills up the vacancies, we might want to expand that. And what you're suggesting, Mr. Cobb, that Wayne participate in, I'd like to participate in also, and see whether or not there's some other professional reservoir of other industries that we should be trying to court and bring into town to fill them up. I'm also proud to say, because of your good work, Carol and Stephanie, we're seeing the filling up of vacancies on Palisade Avenue, East and West. and very credibly and very quickly. So by the time the spring unfolds, there's going to be less vacancies. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jude,
go ahead, Judy.
Yeah, I have a combination comment and question. I would like to know if Ms. Rauscher and Stephanie are monitoring the rentals of the retail spaces. But my comment is, I am not a retailer, but I have lived in Englewood for a long time. And the word that is out is that we have many absentee landlords who are charging exorbitant rents. So I don't know if this is true or, just an exaggeration. However, I'm just wondering if during this era of COVID, someone is monitoring the rents that are being charged and whether or not that has played a role in the number of businesses that we've lost.
No.
Well, I think I can respond to that question. The rents have definitely come down. They were very high pre-COVID and pre the impact of the internet on shopping habits, which really did hurt retail, the bricks and mortar, the store owners, well before COVID, came into play. And any of the savvy landlords today who have had vacancy or who have heard from their existing tenants that they were struggling terribly during COVID, they reduced the rents dramatically or just eliminated rents for several months to help their tenants stay in business, because they were smart enough to recognize that if these tenants closed, they would be sitting with vacancy for many, many months to come. So yes, at one time the rents were crazy high. And when rent was at its highest, the town was thriving, and many of the businesses, the good merchants, were able to afford the rent, which is why if they went into a new lease and agreed to pay the rent, they were confident that at the end of the day they'd make money. But since the highest point, the rents have dropped dramatically.
Are you monitoring these numbers?
Well, as much as I can, because landlords kind of play. That's considered proprietary information. They don't necessarily want to share that. But I'm friendly with a number of landlords who have 1, 2, or sometimes multiple properties, and they will share with me what kind of at least decreases in rent they've agreed to in order to keep the spaces filled or to release the space. So as best as I can, I've been monitoring the rents.
Anybody else have any questions for either Carol or Stephanie?
On this, Mr. Con, maybe Mr. Bailey can let us know, is it within the authority of the council as the governing body to actually enact ordinances that would require dormant spaces with exorbitant rents pay a tax to the city? Is that permitted to kind of force landlords that are obnoxious or arrogant about their rent requests? Have communities in New Jersey done this, Mr. Bailey?
I generally can't do that because, as Ms. Greco pointed out, or Ms. Rauscher, that's really a private matter between the landlord and tenant. If properties get to the point where they're vacant and dormant to the point where they're then a hazard and a public safety issue, that's one thing. But in terms of the taxing them for charging too much, they can try to charge as much as they want. However, as the ladies indicated, the smarter ones work with their tenants to help them out because they don't want vacant storefronts and buildings either. But the one thing I would, and this kind of dovetails into the discussion later on in the agenda, but much of what Ms. Greco and Ms. Rauscher pointed out really are fitting to the discussion about hiring a planner to look at the zoning throughout the city, which we've discussed previously, and use requirements, bulk requirements, and what have you.
Thank you.
To follow up on the mayor's question, could there be a vacancy tax, or if not that, could there be specific requirements for how a vacant store looks? So even if it's some sort of, glass covering that makes it look more appealing than a, completely empty store with garbage visible from the street, could we put that, some sort of restriction like that?
The tax is difficult to do. There is property maintenance. That ordinance could be looked at. But if there is garbage and things like that, yes, that would probably even violate our existing code. But in terms of forcing them to cover up windows and things like that, that can get tricky. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not easy if it's otherwise maintained.
I think this is an opportunity for us to build a relationship with anybody who wants to do business in the city of Englewood. So we should attempt to build a relationship with these owners here, and see how it works first before we try to go after them in a certain way, and understand their side of it as well, to work with us, So I think we need to build that relationship as well. I think that that's important.
So I guess I'll just speak because I'm not going to get called on. So, basically,
nobody could see your hand.
My hand was up 3 times already tonight, and a few things. First of all, I think the punitive measures, are totally misdirected. You want to have a city that landlords feel you're going to be punitive of. They're just not going to come into the city, and stores aren't going to come into the city. I think you need to look at it from a total flip side of try to incentivize and figure out some sort of formula by which if they lower their rates and if somebody comes in, there's some sort of incentive program to lower rates to make sure that our stores are open and that we're a place that people want to do business in. There are a million different ways you can incentivize, whether it's tax incentives, whether it's we could say when times are, what other cities have done in different parts of the country is you incentivize them at a certain level, when times are tough, but there's a benchmark so that when times are good, those things get repaid in some sort of way, and there's a balancing. So kind of like when you're doing your PSE&G balancing of your monthly billing, you can figure out some way to help landlords and to help them do what they need to do to incentivize new stores and new businesses to come in, because typically when the place is thriving and every store is filled, rents are going to go up because place will be thriving. If you have empty storefronts every 2 feet, then nobody's going to want to come here because the foot traffic's not going to be here because there's nothing to do. So I think when you look to act punitively towards businesses, you end up in a vicious circle, which ends up not helping the city. I think you need to incentivize and make this a business-friendly community, as much as we can, and understand their challenges. And if landlords are sitting there and saying, we know between the brick and mortar issues, between online shopping and between COVID, to go and then, you can't punitively tell people that they can't charge a certain rate in a free market economy, in a capitalist economy. It's called socialism. But, so I think the way that we had been looking at this is just totally wrong. I think you need to incentivize. Secondly, and Stephanie and Carol, and Stephanie, it's nice to meet you, Carol. You and I have always, how highly I think of the work that you've done, for all these years. But when we say we can't figure out, what people are charging in rent, can't we just look at what the brokers are charging? Because I have a hard. I don't believe that these commercial tenants commercial landlords who are not on site, they're not sitting there and showing their own places. They're using commercial brokers, and those would be open public listings, I would assume, like MLS or anywhere else in most cases. Unless they're doing exclusive listings, which even then they're easy to find out. So couldn't we make those determinations based on just looking at what's going on in the brokerage area?
Well, of course, I'm always looking at listings, and listings will tell us what the asking rent is. But the real question that needs answering is, what did the deal get made at? That's really the bottom line. You can ask $60 a foot, But if the deal winds up at $25 a foot, that's the number we need to know about. So, and that's the number that some brokers may share with you, and I know them all, and I have a good relationship with them, and some will tell me what the number is, some will give me a ballpark because they feel it's proprietary, but that's the number that I need to monitor, is what the deal came in at, not what the asking rent was.
Well, I would also assume that, people are, you can tell if that there's an asking rent that, the place stays unrented for a particular period of time, that, the reason being just based on market, just on market trends, is that the rent's too high. If it goes quickly, it's, I mean, it's, I don't have to tell you, this stuff, but, but it's a question of just, I would assume that there's, a general amount for, different classes of properties that are going for ranges. Obviously you're going to always have an outlier here and there, or somebody who, for whatever reason thinks that they can be an outlier. But I would say that the market trends, would be fairly consistent, because why would somebody rent someplace for $60 a square foot when they can get it for 30 next door? These people want to be competitive, I would assume.
I hear what you're saying, but again, asking rents can vary, and basically what the deal gets done at is very different, because it's not just rent. There's a free rent period, there might be a cash allowance, there may be half rent for a while. So, and that's a function of how big an investment is the tenant putting into the property. If it's a restaurant tenant with a new kitchen, they might be making, who knows, a $500,000 investment. So that kind of tenant might get all kinds of allowances. And so that affects the net effective rent for each space. So it's somewhat nuanced.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Carol, thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Seeing that there are no more questions, we're going to move on to ordinances, public hearing and second reading. Ordinance 2101. Consideration now will be given to ordinance 2101. Will the city clerk please read the ordinance by title?
This is an ordinance amending Chapter 374, Stormwater Management of the Code of the City of Englewood.
I believe Mr. Volsi, can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, this is essentially an update to our ordinance to meet the new DEP guidelines. As I stated previously, the DEP has adopted some new guidelines which require all Tier A MS4 municipalities to modify and amend their stormwater control ordinances. What this does is provide some new, stronger, tougher requirements to the ordinances. And that's the base that every municipality has to be by. Now, we do have the option of amending it later on to a stronger ordinance if we wish, but the DEP has essentially laid out what the base is that everyone has to abide by. So we're essentially meeting those requirements.
Okay. Anybody got any questions for Mr. Volsi before we get started? No? I declare that the public hearing on this ordinance is now open. If there is anyone who desires to be heard or to ask any questions concerning this ordinance, he or she will be heard at this time. Please come forward, raise your hand, give your name and address, and you have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Nancy.
Oh, you're giving 2 minutes? Okay.
Yeah, well.
I have to get my clock ready then. Okay, first one is Rick.
Yeah, hello.
We can hear you, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to say about what this ordinance is, but I wish the council president would stop filibustering this meeting, talking about useless things so we could get to the meat and potatoes. That's all.
Next.
Nobody else has their hand raised.
If no one else wishes to be heard, I will now close the public hearing. I will move that ordinance 2101 be adopted. I need a second, a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second,
Roll call.
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilman Hamer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Maren,
yes.
Councilman Rosenzweig,
Yes.
Council President Cobb.
Yes. I declare the motion carried and the ordinance duly adopted, and that the ordinance be published once by title only in the record. Next, we have ordinance for first reading. Ordinance 2102. We need a motion to introduce ordinance 2120. And Nancy, could you read it in?
Sure. This is an ordinance fixing salaries of the firefighters of the Fire Department of the City of Englewood effective for the years 2018, 2019, and 2020.
Mr. Kaufman, is he here? Could he speak to that? Or Sonia, could you speak to it?
Sure. This is in relation to the fire agreement that the contract that was settled for the past 3 years. So part of that, there's an ordinance that needs to be readjusted to identify with the new salary structure.
Okay, anybody have any questions regarding that? I move that this ordinance be passed on first reading and be published once by title only in the record, and that the public hearing be held on April 2nd, 2020. Need a motion in a second.
I so move.
Second.
Second. Roll call.
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilman Hamer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Maren,
Yes.
Councilman Rosenzweig,
Yes.
Council President Cobb.
Yes, I declare the motion carried. Next, we need a motion to introduce ordinance
Council
21.
President?
Yes,
If I could ask that this be tabled, I'm working with the attorney for SHG,
Okay.
the owner of the property, who's getting us some additional information that we need before we introduce the ordinance.
okay, so we need a motion to table.
So moved.
I'll second it. Roll call.
Okay, Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilman Hamer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Maren,
Yes.
Councilman Rosenzweig,
Yes.
Council President Cobb.
Yes. The resolution has been tabled. Resolutions up, okay. Does anybody have any from the public wish to speak on resolutions 092 through 108? If anyone from the public has to state their name, address before speaking, and remind them that it's only on these resolutions. Nancy?
No one's raising their hand.
Okay, we'll close this part of the meeting and we'll go for unanimous consent.
So moved.
I'll second it. Nancy?
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilman Hamer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Maren,
Yes.
Councilman Rosenzweig,
Yes.
Council President Cobb.
Yes. I declare the motion carried and the resolution is duly adopted. Next, we have items for discussion, building heights and setbacks. Mr. Bailey, I believe you and Sonia could speak to this. This is something that we want to do.
Right. If I could start on that, Council President.
Yep.
All of our discussion at the last meeting, we had discussion about hiring a planner to assist the city in doing an analysis and evaluation and making recommendations in terms of looking at our zoning code and land use regulations in terms of bulk requirements, which are setbacks, heights, requirements, things of that nature, as well as permitted uses, particularly in light of the times that we're in, and to see what can be done to improve, not just the downtown, but the city in general in terms of zoning and what have you. Sonia and I met with virtually a planner that the city manager had worked with in the past, who, while very qualified, this is not quite her area that her practice is focused on. It's more focused on affordable housing type of things and what have you. So really at this juncture, the options available to the governing body are to, if they have a planner in mind, if there's a consensus, we could adopt a resolution at the next meeting appointing that planner. The other alternative is to issue a request for proposals, which would go out to the world, so to speak, and various planners could submit proposals to assist the city in that endeavor to, again, look at bulk requirements and use requirements and what have you.
Thank you. And go ahead. Who's that?
Mr.
Yep.
Bale, if we do take the RFP route, I just, in terms of process and procedure, that the city council would have to motion, because this is part of a competitive contract, that they motion that we can go out and put this proposal out within the 20 days and things like that. So I just want to let everybody know what the process would be to hire a plan, to hire a planner in that way.
Could we get a recommendation from Franz outside of T&M, and then we can hire somebody that way as well? Or what's the other kinds of ways that we can do this?
Yes, you could do it that way as well.
It's a professional service, so we could certainly do it that way.
Okay.
That's typically a little quicker than the RFP process because there are certain timeframes and publications that have to go out.
Right.
Excuse me, my concern is that we get the right planner. I don't want to just get any commercial planner. I think it's a mistake. It's too important to this town. And I would like to see resumes from anyone that's being considered. I don't think it's as simple as, just putting out a fishnet and getting whatever comes by. There are many fine planners around, and if we let it be known that we're looking for someone, I'm sure we'll get somebody good.
And to that point, Councilwoman Marin, you can also bring those people and interview them.
Yes, that's right. That's what I'm asking.
Oh, yeah.
For.
Definitely. We definitely have to interview them without a doubt. They have to know what the expectations are.
So part of the RFP process, we can include that in there. So I think that's probably the best way to solicit for candidates, qualified candidates.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be casting a wider net as well. So,
okay,
in a good way, I mean.
Yeah, we need some new ideas and really capable professionals.
Okay, so let's start preparing for that route so we can get this thing going.
Mr. Bailey, don't we need a motion in order to go do that?
Yeah, if we could just, so that everyone's clear that the authorization is being given and it's unanimous to authorize the preparation of an RFP for a planning services.
So we want a motion and a second to approve action regarding
just authorizing it.
Or authorizing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hiring or anything like that.
Authorizing the what, Bill?
Authorizing the process to begin the issuance of a request for proposals for city planner.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Can we have a vote?
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilman Hamer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin,
Yes.
Councilman Rosenzweig,
Yes.
Council President Cobb.
Yes. So I also believe that we covered the downtown zoning, I think, with in between the presentation and the conversation. And if anybody else has anything to say about the downtown zoning.
Councilman Cobb,
Yes.
before we move on, I want to make sure that we don't push this issue a little bit further down the road than we need to. We were going to have a discussion about the heights and setbacks, and the request at one point, and if it wasn't clear, I'd like to renew it to have an ordinance in place, or at least an ordinance presented for discussion that returned the heights and the setbacks to the
previous heights,
previous amounts or previous numbers. And I'd rather get that document in front of us so that we can begin that discussion and not wait until we have a planner in place. What's happened is, we've got building and, it's land uses or land abuses, whichever way you want to define it. But it's all concentrated in one area of town. And, I think the longer we take to remedy that, or at least start the discussion about fixing it, the greater the opportunity is for more of that type of activity. So I'd absolutely like to request to have, that document in front of us so that we can discuss it at our next meeting. And, if the planner needs to weigh in, we can get that information, but I absolutely want to at least have the document in front of us so that we can begin to have a full discussion and, get moving on action if that's what we decide to do.
Yep. Sounds good to me. So, Mr.
If
Bailey?
I may, Council President,
Yes.
when you do a zoning ordinance change, it has to be done in conjunction with an examination of consistency with the master plan, which is why a planner is critical for that process. Because if it's not consistent with the master plan, there has to be detailed explanation why, or the master plan has to be amended to reflect the zoning change. And ordinance changes have to be referred to the planning board for consistency review, as you may recall, which we've done on multiple occasions over the years, where it's introduced and then forwarded to the planning board for consistency review and then returned. So an examination has to be done to make sure it's consistent with the master plan.
So all of that, certainly takes time and eats up the calendar, but I certainly want to begin with the discussion, the document, so that we can at least move it over to the planning board for their review and return, and along the way, work out whatever arrangements we need to with the planner so that we do get consistencies and get the process moving.
So, Mr. Bailey, whatever steps we can take.
Yeah, the first step is to hire the planner.
Right. Okay, so we've kind of taken that to so you and Sonia could start to move on that, and hopefully we'll have some information at our next meeting, right?
So what'll happen, we're gonna put together a package, an RFP package, and we'll advertise it. There'll be certain requirements in there in terms of what we look for in a planner. Bill and I will work on that. But we hope in between there to at least get the advertisement out, so then we can start to work on that, because it's gonna be out there for 20 days at least.
It's a long time. I'm sure we've been talking about this thing for a couple of months already.
It's that 20 days is out of our hands. That's the purchasing requirement, that it's out for 20 days versus a bid, which is out for 10 days.
So we need to have that, whatever on our end, tightened up so that when next time we meet, we can kind of make this thing happen, so we can move this along. Okay, next. We have communications from mayor and council. Mayor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Good evening, everybody. Would like to first wish everybody good health and safety in these historic times. A privilege for me to have made an appointment, a recommendation to the council, and Arnold Brown to the Board of Adjustment, replacing George Feintuck, whose service to the city of Englewood was simply extraordinary and over a very long period of time. As Mr. Feintuck steps down from Englewood's Board of Adjustment, I made recommendations to Mr. Brown, whose family roots stretch deep into Bergen County's history and a lifetime of work of preserving not just North Jersey's history, but acting more progressively and equitably for all of Englewood's residents. Again, Mr. Brown helped lead the desegregation of Dwight Morrow High School in 1961. With a law degree from Rutgers and an active practice in Englewood, he became a local leader in the civil rights movement, becoming the first Black Bergen County resident to be elected to the New Jersey State Assembly. And his own legal experience and position as an assemblyman, coupled with the deep knowledge in the city's heritage, I believe will benefit the board in making their decisions. I'm confident he will find and offer a fresh perspective, and I thank him for his commitment. This week, I also appointed Manny Barrientos as the planning board liaison to the Environmental Commission as well. A breath of fresh air, trying to make sure that whatever controlled development we have is environmentally sustainable as well. We're beginning to see stores filling up in the central business district. We did a ribbon cutting this week at Fontana di Trevi, an Italian restaurant. There's a jewelry and a carpet place and a I forget the nationality. I think it's Portuguese restaurant that's being built out as we speak, and a lot of other vacancies that are being filled out. Curbside pickup for food distribution, Tuesday, March 2nd, food distribution at First Baptist Church. The food actually was distributed until they ran out. For the remainder of March, the Community of Kindness program is supporting a local senior population, and also the Community Chest and other groups are heralding not only the raising of money, but the tolling out of the money to local businesses and then local residents who are hungry, able to get the money. Mask Up Bergen County, anybody who would like a mask, I distributed it heavily. You should reach out to my good offices without fee. I'm happy to mail it to you. Please, again, continue to take cautions and precautions all the time. Congratulations to Englewood's own Wayner After to be an Associate Justice of the New Jersey Supreme Court, a resident of the city of Englewood. This is a big honor for her family, for our city, and again, for justice being meted out properly. Please feel free to join me every Friday at 11 a.m. when I have coffee with the mayor, where I go into greater depth on all the challenges that we have. I want to thank the city management for opening up City Hall and doing it so judiciously and smart in such a way that we protect not just city employees, but residents that are calling. And again, please be sure that if you are going to call on us, that you follow the protocols that have been publicly displayed. Thank you, Mr. Cobb.
Ms. Marin?
Oh, thank you. First of all, I'd like to once again congratulate Deborah Baldwin and Ed Roy Jenkins for their recognition, for doing a splendid job. And I hope Ms. Baldwin has a lovely, quiet, happy retirement. Okay.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Mr. Cohen?
Sorry, Russ, I'm muted. Well, first of all, with everything at City Hall, I know, us on the council have been able to enjoy it, but thanks to Sonia, when residents can go into City Hall now, they'll see it newly painted and all the improvements to make it look like it should look, and how residents can be proud of City Hall. It sounds small, but at the end of the day, when you walk into our City Hall and you want to be able to believe that the city is capable and competent of doing what we're tasked to do, you don't want to walk into a building that looks like it's falling apart. So Sonia, just want to thank you again, now that everybody can have access to making sure that when we want to have pride in Englewood, we can have pride in our City Hall too. So thank you for that. Also, Just wanted to, I know I've been in touch constantly with Sonia and with Franz and about, throughout this PSC&G crisis. And just want to thank you again for all of your, putting up with me constantly bugging you every 30 seconds about it, and dealing with the concerns, of the second ward, in Longboard Avenue and the smells and everything else. I think, obviously we still have a ways to go, but your responsiveness, both of you, hopefully, like we said, we knew the joists were the problem, and the main is a problem, and having those problems at least acknowledged and starting to work on instead of the consistent band-aids that we've been seeing from PSG for God knows how many years, to really get real solutions to these problems. I know it's not easy, and with both of you and our team, we've been able to, it seems like finally make some real progress here. We've got a long way to go, and I'm going to still keep bugging both of you about it until it's done. But just did want to thank you for your efforts thus far on this to both of you. And Sonia, don't worry, rest assured, I probably bug Franz a lot more than I bug you, so he's taking the brunt of a lot of it. Then also, I just want to bring up again, because I know a lot of people even tonight are going to bring it up in the public session, and it's when it comes to the community center, we've paid Joyce Dudley. I don't know if we've ever heard anything yet, but typically when we pay somebody, we'd like to hear what the report was, the response was. Like I said, the issue of a community center is been out there for as long as I can ever remember, and as long as probably anybody on this meeting can ever remember. These kind of steps need to be, we're not going to get there in a day. Rome wasn't built in a day, but we need to be able to build confidence throughout our city that the steps we're taking are steps that are moving forward and that are smart and that are positive. I've heard many ideas of late, many creative ideas of late. Ideas ranging from, making sure that if developers come into town, asking them, if they can put aside a very small percentage of the revenue towards a community, towards operations there, or all kinds of ideas to make sure that on top of whatever we're paying in recreation, there are, especially, also people talking about, with the current, interest rates, that there are, a lot of things going on now, which should be considered in terms of how we go about moving forward, and, making sure that, we take positive and real steps towards the right way that are substantive. So, I think those are critical things to look at. We heard on the public session last time, which I believe we all take to heart, is, the PSC&G problem is one that, I'm working on 24/7. It's affecting, I know there are PSC&G issues which affect every part of our city. But I know that folks around the city at the last meeting were saying, in the various different wards, that we have issues too, we have problems too, and we need to make sure to address each of those. That's why when we talk about these other issues, yes, I look forward to the city's support and wholehearted support in solving the PSC&G issues in Broad Avenue, but no less do I look to support issues of such criticalness throughout the city when called upon by other wards as well, by those members representing them, or by whatever the issues have. So we talk about being one city, and we talk about being united, and we talk about helping each other out. Those need to be real. Like, those can't just be words. We have too many fancy words and not enough action. I just look forward to continue bugging our administrative staff constantly to move forward and have progress on everything we can do for our constituents and our residents and our departments. I see already, and it's a testament to Sonia that when I speak to department heads now, you can see the respect they have for her at this point, which is something which, we've needed that kind of leadership for some time. I think that our community is better served for it. And I think our constituent services are better served for it. First of all, so thank you, Sonia. Thank you to all the staff, the Franz, and, we thanked two people, tonight that have done an extraordinary job. But I think under your leadership, the entire city administration, the entire city staff has definitely been moved in a positive direction, and look forward to more of that. Thank you.
Ken?
I'm sorry, me?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So today is March 16th, which is a date I think I'll remember for the rest of my life. And today is the day last year where COVID knocked me out of commission. And what followed was one of the most stressful months of my life, as I and other hospital workers adapted to the tremendous difficulties of caring for patients during the pandemic. Yesterday, the New York Times had an article on healthcare workers who died as a result of treating patients with COVID. One of the doctors profiled worked side by side with my wife for almost 25 years, caring for the children of Bergen County. Her loss is still being felt to this day and will be for many years to come. My condolences go out to everyone who has had a loss due to the coronavirus pandemic. On happier news, I joined the mayor in congratulating Rachel Apter on her nomination to the Supreme Court of New Jersey. She does the city very proud. And finally, I mentioned the date just a second ago, March 16th. In my 7 years on the city council, this is the earliest that a city budget has been ready for adoption. And I'd like to congratulate my colleagues on the council and mention my appreciation of them for being so well organized and getting this done and having it ready to go. This is new for me. And for the second year in a row, the projected increase is less than 2% and without any gimmicks. I served on many committees in my career and I continue to serve on them. And this is an extremely high functioning group of people. And thank you for the honor of being part of this committee. And thank you all and good night.
Thank you. Councilman Hamer.
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of items. First, thanks to all of you who are attending. Next, I wanted to ask everyone to please continue to be safe. Use your mask, wash your hands, use social distancing. It's really important. There are the vaccine supply has been increased, and vaccines are starting to get out and get down to people who need them. More people who need them. The efforts are in earnest and serious. So please continue to be safe and fight the good fight. Hopefully the end of this nightmare is coming. I do want to thank Franz for Lafayette and the crosswalks and the better lighting that we're expecting to see in the next few months. It's long overdue, and thank you very much for that. So again, thanks to everyone who's in attendance. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hamer. I'd just like to say thanks to everybody who's coming out tonight, but I want to address a couple of things. Sonia, and maybe you can help me address this. With Joyce Dudley, she was paid in full for what for services rendered, as you sent that document to me.
Yes.
And maybe you can explain how it works with government about paying as you go along.
Sure. So anyone who is paid under the purchasing law, you were only paid for the services that were rendered. And thus far, and I can attest, I came in late to the game. So whatever we paid for was for consulting services only, and the services were rendered. There was an amount of $10,000 in total that was paid to the firm. And again, for consulting services only. And of course, that has in our system that's noted that it was some preliminary things that were done. So anything that we did not get to, or we didn't get from Dudley and Associates, I believe, of course, we did not pay for.
Right. And so as far as
And will not pay for unless there's a final document or a final service completed.
right. And at this point, we have nothing. So we are paying for nothing. The other thing is, Mr. Bailey, I wanted to bring you the ERA. Could you explain that as well?
Yeah.
You know, there was something floating around $11 million. Could you explain that whole thing there, please?
Yes, and if you just bear with me, because I need to give a little history. Approximately 20 years ago, the area around Route 4 South, that general area was deemed a special improvement district by the governing body back again in the early 2000s, I would say it was, before mine or our time. Subsequent to that, in 2011, because the city had expended monies to construct Sterling Boulevard and provide access to that property south of Route 4, the city, after having public hearings, imposed a special assessment on the property owners immediately south of Route 4 there. What that is, a special assessment is something in addition to your regular property tax, because in this case, the city took the position that a special benefit was given to those properties for which they should pay. That special assessment was $8.5 million and was assessed against the two primary property owners in ERA South, as it is typically called. At that time, there was 377 units, 125 of which were condominiums owned by one entity, often referred to as the M. The other was 252 units, which were the two original rental apartments buildings constructed on that site. The city was subsequently sued by those property owners, claiming that the $8.5 million special assessment was invalid. We got a judgment in favor of the city by the trial level in the amount of $8,535 is the actual number. That was then appealed by those property owners to the appellate division, claiming that the trial judge erred in finding in favor of the city. Subsequently, that case was then settled in 2019. And part of that settlement was the $8.5 million was sustained. And in addition to that, for other consideration, and another $3.5 million was going to be paid to the city upon the completion of additional units and mixed use retail on what we've commonly referred to as the hotel pad and office pad. The $8,535,000 that has been paid, was paid over 10 years, commencing in 2011 by the property owners. So I'd have to verify it, but the last payment is due this year. They had way back asked the court to not have to pay it pending their appeals. That was denied. So that has been paid over a 10-year period in quarterly annual installments. So what remains due and owing at this point is the $3.5 million, which pursuant to the 2019 settlement agreement is due and payable upon completion of the construction of the additional property development on what was the hotel pad and the office pad. Their prior approvals were to build a roughly 150 room, I believe a 9-story hotel and a 144 or 150,000 square foot office building on those sites. Instead, there's going to be 220 residential units, a roughly 40,000 square foot office building, and some retail with affordable housing to be provided as part of the 220 units.
Sonia?
Bill, I just want to clarify that the monies that the city receives is a one-time revenue, Sean. It is not money that could substitute for something else. I just want to make sure that the public knows that monies we receive in terms of settlements or things of this nature, that it's a one-time revenue.
Correct.
Thank you. Nancy, was there and we can answer this after I finish. But was there any more? I know we had a list of questions from the last meeting. Yes, Bill.
The Taylor Bliss House,
Correct.
if I can address that.
Yep, go ahead.
There's questions about how such a transfer of the house to the city would take place, and a question concerning insurance. In terms of the transfer of what's really the structure, they're not giving the property, the ground that it sits on, to the city, but if it's proposed to be given to the city would then have to formally accept that with clear title to that property, which would be, again, the structure, the Bliss House itself. If the city chose to accept that, it can then be placed, and as people have discussed, in Eleanor Harvey Park, which a while ago, pre-pandemic, I had spoken to the executor of Ms. Harvey's estate, who, just to make sure, she felt that that was consistent with Ms. Harvey's wishes, and she found that that would be, because the house that was on that site was removed due to its hazardous condition and not being up to code and what have you. But the executor of Ms. Harvey's estate thought that that would be consistent, putting another historical building on that property, particularly given Ms. Harvey's involvement with the historical committee and what have you. In terms of insurance, as what happens when the city acquires other property, whether it's real estate or police cars or fire trucks or other buildings, they are then added to the coverage of the city's casualty insurance through the Garden State Joint Insurance Fund. So what would happen is, if the city accepts the Taylor Bliss House and it's placed on the city property, for example, Harvey Park, we then contact, as that's going on, we contact the insurance fund through our risk manager, Mr. Sinelli of Brown & Brown, who makes arrangement to have that added to the coverage for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Getting back on track, I just wanted to make sure we address those couple of issues. I would like to also, again, congratulate Deborah Baldwin and Ed Roy Jenkins on being recognized for the work they have done for the city and continue to do for the city. And I look forward to recognizing other people as well. To Councilman Rosenzweig's comment about the budget, about it being ready and to deliver, we did that last year as well. So it's 2 years in a row. So we've done that. We've done the hard work and we've stayed focused. And I think that was the commitment to making sure that we have Englewood on the right track financially is important to everybody in the room. So we continue to be committed to that and focused on that. So, we'll continue to get there each and every year, I believe, once we solidify this framework that we're in place. And especially since we have good news with the budget, with the $27 million that in short notes that we'll be able to put in long notes and protect us against interest rate risk, actually saving the city money as interest rates start to creep up, so that's very important to everybody here. So I think that's something else we can be proud of in terms of that. And I think that there's a number of things that are looking good from our budget, and some of the work that Mr. Volsi has completed, which I want to thank him for, the Herring Fields that are ready to go. There's a lot of work and it's been a long time going. So that's important. So as Little League and other baseball teams start to play, they'll be playing there. And the commitment to our budget to actually put a new turf field in and a new Little League field in, and to take care of the basketball courts once again. So we have some things going on here, as well as infrastructure things on Lafayette Place, Forest Avenue, and a number of places around the city. So Mr. Volsi will be very busy. So I thank you for that. And with the city manager, I think we've had some discussions about some senior programming that we're putting in place and there's more to come on that. So we'll make it easier for our seniors around to deal with their garbage and things of that nature. So we got some things in place. So we just continue to put in the best services as possible. And that's what this is all about. So thank you and stay safe. Next, we will move to public comment. Ms. Alves, is Mr. Kaufman here, or we moved his report up, right? We moved everything up for him.
Yes.
So he's
we
gone.
did.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go to the public session of our meeting. We have 2 minutes, name, address, and hopefully the decorum will be appropriate. If not, you will be muted going forward.
Okay.
Just raise your hand and Yancy will let you in.
We ready?
Yes, please.
First in queue is Amy Bullock. Amy, unmute.
Amy Bullock, Howland Avenue, Englewood. So, Mr. Cobb, you missed one of my questions, which was in regards to the town halls that T&M said that they were looking to hold in February to get community input on the RFP. That's number one. Number two, I find it very concerning that at every council meeting, we can have 10, 15, 20 minutes of discussion around a plethora of issues. And the only person that brings up a community center is Michael Cohen, when this has been a topic of conversation for 30 years. That's very disturbing. I also have some questions regarding this Taylor Bliss situation. This house is moved to Eleanor Harvey Park. Is the city going to be responsible for sustaining it? Because I have to ask the question, since we've been told that there is no money to sustain a community center, how is it that there's money to sustain Taylor Bliss House? So we have to stop with the shenanigans. The community did not get any information out of the consulting work that Joyce Dudley did. So she was paid for her services, but the purpose of hiring a consultant is to get information, which we did not get. So tax dollars wasted. Now we're going to have more with T&M. We're still waiting on those. And let's not talk about the ones that happened in 2014 with the master plan. And let's not talk about the ones that happened before that. We've had enough of the town halls. We need to have a final session of town hall meetings to determine what people want in a community center. And we need to look at issuing bonds to build that community center and community development agreements to get developers coming into the town to pay into the quality of life of the residents that live here in Englewood. This is not rocket science. Every community around us has a community center. And we, for some reason, can't even maintain a baseball field. It doesn't make sense to me at all. We have to stop. We have to take this seriously because this is impacting the quality of life of the residents of Englewood. I love the businesses. I shop at them. But I'm a taxpayer here, as are the other 20 some odd thousand people who live here. And our voices have to count for something. And for 30 years, we've been asking for a community center. The expectation is that it will be addressed expeditiously and thoroughly and fairly for all residents of Englewood.
She fell out. Next.
Yeah, I'm not sure if
Something happened.
we lost Amy.
Yeah, something happened. Go ahead, next. Who's next?
Okay, next is Casey Billard.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Casey Billard. I live on 140 Humphrey Street in Englewood. And I'm basically just mirroring the concerns that Amy just had. I haven't been to a council meeting in about 8 years, and it was the same issue that it is 8 years ago. So I just wanted to know what conclusion we're going to come to and how this is going to be handled. That's really all I have
Still
to
a song.
say.
Okay. Next. So do we have an answer from Stan?
We have a draft from,
Does he
From
have a
Stan.
time? Does he have a timeline?
Well, he's joining us for closed session.
right,
Okay.
right. But ultimately, there will be a timeline provided to the residents.
Okay. So that'll be posted on the website.
Yes, absolutely. That'll be provided to them shortly.
Okay.
Okay. Next is Diane Jensen.
Diane Jansen, 589 Richland Terrace. In a follow-up to the question on the timeline for the RFP for Liberty School, does that include input from the residents? That's number one. Number two, when we were talking about the gas on Broad Avenue, I was very saddened to hear a member of the synagogue say, our community center. He was referring to the center at Ava Torah. And it saddened me that that was his community center. We need to come together as a community. We need it to be Englewood's, yours, mine, and our community center. It's very sad that these people, myself included, are still talking about this. I only got involved in the city in 2018, and now I see, after 3 years, we're still talking about the same thing. It's very sad. I also would like to request that when people speak, their faces be shown, especially if they're giving presentations or being honored. That's part of being part of the community. To be a blank face, to only see your faces, to see some of you eating, wondering where you live. It's very disrespectful. Thank you.
Okay. Next is Ricky.
Yeah, Rick Wilby, Broad Street, Englewood, New Jersey. Charles, I just want you to know that your masters are few, but your Black constituents will outnumber them if you can't respond to us. The day of consequence and confrontation cometh. In the words of Councilwoman Merrin, I heard, I don't know, but if it's true or exaggerated, Council President Cobb's involvement in the LaGuardia proposal constitutes a conflict. He should recuse himself. Likewise, his financier, Adam Brown, David Moran, and his wife, who sits on the council, should abstain and not participate in the RFP process if there are some improprieties or some backroom dealing. Now, I've heard your name come up in this LaGuardia thing, and it's very nefarious, and it's not going to be fair and transparent, like you always like to say. Also, furthermore, I think the city should consider what the New York City Council is doing with Council Corey Johnson's suggestion. The city should make the people the point to decide what kind of projects they want in their city. Now you and Wayne talk about heights and setbacks after you sat up there and let these people do whatever they want to do and build these settlements in our community and destroy them. We have a segregated part of the Fourth Ward with the haves and the have-nots and a constant exodus of the people that can no longer afford to live there. And you need to restructure this meeting to where all your grandstanding filibuster and bullshit can come at the end of the meeting and not at the beginning of the meeting when people need to go to bed. I myself go to bed at 8, and I'm completely upset and disgusted with all the crap that I have to go through, schlep through to get to the point. We need our community center. You people need to stop with the political nepotism and kleptocracy and respond to the people. We don't all need to live on Broad. You need to respond to all the damn people. You guys have a bad night.
Okay. Next is Colette. Wants to keep promoting her to panelist. I'm going to have to promote her to panelist. It's the only thing it's letting me do.
Oh my God. Okay, y'all got me out here with my bonnet on and stuff. Oh my God. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, whew. I don't even know what to say at this point. Listening to everybody speak, and I don't understand what is wrong with each and every one of you sitting up there. Like, I don't get it. Like, what is it going to take for you guys to take this seriously? Like, we need a community center. We need y'all to do an RFP for a community center. Like, I know elections are coming up. You guys going to be cleaning up stuff, fixing up parks, and fixing up roads, and everybody loves everybody right now. But what have you guys done since you've been in office? Like, what is it going to take? We need a community center. Not no apartments, not no business school, not no LaGuardia wants to make a performing arts. We don't need none of that. We need a community center. What is so hard for you guys to make it happen? Like, y'all sit up here with all of this rubbish and all of this. Ain't got time for that. I'm telling you right now, I'm not making no threats. I'm cool, Lord, I ain't making no threats. But I'm telling you right now, the ones that's sitting up here not doing nothing, haven't done nothing all this time, your time is coming to an end. Because we are tired. We are tired of you guys ignoring us, sitting up on these boards, talking all that nonsense, and ain't doing nothing for us. You ain't doing nothing for us. And our kids, our seniors, and y'all sitting up in here with this nonsense. And then you don't answer none of our questions. Y'all gonna hang up right now when I'm done today. Okay, thank you very much. See you then. Like, you know what? Y'all gonna wish you guys gonna wish you didn't. Y'all gonna
Okay. Next is Peter Jansen. See if this works. There you go.
Yes, good evening, Pete Jansen, Ridgeland Terrace, Englewood. I'm here speaking in favor of a community center at the Liberty School and to plead with you to include the community. The people that are going to benefit is the community. The best decisions are made when a diverse group is brought together and everyone is willing to concede a little bit, but make sure they give their best ideas and put the ideas on the table. And when everyone comes to the table and we get the most people to come forward to meet at that table, and I'm talking about children, high schoolers, middle schoolers, elderly people, not just a small section of the demographic. We have 28,000 people in Englewood. How can you get out to understand the people that make the decisions are the council people? How can you get out to understand and make a decision that will best serve the community without involving the community to get that input? Every one of you has a unique set of people that you talk to about what that form your idea of what the community center or what should be done with that building. And all I'm asking is, can we expand it to include the entire city and make the city a key piece, every person in the city a key piece of that decision? Thank you.
Next is Jacqueline Wisner. You have to unmute yourself. Ms. Wisner, you have to unmute yourself. Jacqueline? You have to unmute yourself. You want me to go to the next person, Mr. Cobb?
She wants to be heard. She's got it. Can we get her attention?
I pressed ask to unmute.
Hey, Jackie, you gotta press unmute. You gotta unmute yourself, Jackie. Jackie? I don't know. Jackie, you gotta unmute yourself. Yeah, go to the next person. I don't know how to get her attention.
Next is Angelina Rivera.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Angelina Rivera, Ridgeland Terrace, here in Englewood. Good evening. First, I do want to thank you guys for all that you do. I know everything isn't always as easy as we wish it could be, but I do agree with a lot of the residents. There's a lot of things being ignored. And Michael, thank you for bringing up the community center. But I'm just really here to piggyback on what many of our residents have said regarding a community center. I know I've mentioned it to you guys, to all of the council. I've emailed you, and I do appreciate those that do respond. But the city of Englewood does need a community center, and I hope to see the community center on the RFP for the Russell C. Major Liberty School. And just want to state that for the record, even though I know I have emailed you and mentioned this multiple times. Thank you.
Next is Pamela Major. Ms. Major, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, the button just came up to ask me to unmute myself. Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Pamela Major, former Englewood resident and forever daughter of Russell C. Major. Mr. Rosenzweig mentioned the tragedy of this day for him. And I just want to talk about something wonderful that happened on this day, March 16, the first daughter of Janice E. Dismas, for which the Janice E. Dismas School is named. This is her birthday. And she sat, I believe, on the Board of Education with Mrs. Marin, as well as my father, where they did numerous wonderful things for the people of Englewood. And I believe that from Thomas Monroe to Arnold Brown to Lamar Thomas to numerous people, including last week's Coffee with the Mayor, the desire for the people of the city of Englewood to have a community center is quite clear. On November 10th, I had the opportunity to participate in a council meeting. And I said at that time, and I repeat at this time, that I will be more than willing to help with fundraising. I have since then had several people who have many connections say to me that they are willing to engage in fundraising, corporate donations and such. And so Mr. Cobb at that time said he did not want to drag this out, and yet it is 4 months later, and we still have not had a town hall. I am believing that you all want to do what is right for the people of the city of Englewood. From hearing them to participating and engaging in work that will be for the best interest. People are interested in this community center. They're desirous of this community center, And I trust that you will make sure that it happens.
Next is Janet Sharma.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you again. I fully support the efforts to build a community center or to turn Liberty School into a community center in Englewood, and I'm behind that all the way. In the meantime, however, there are some things that we can do to help build community, particularly among the older adults. I'm the coordinator of the Age-Friendly Englewood program. I think many of you know that. I actually live in Cresskill, but I do a lot of my work, all of my work right now in Englewood. I have sent a message to Mr. Voltzi and also to Mr. Mayor that Age-Friendly Englewood has some money to put benches around town. And I was reading recently about a program in Boston where they really did a lot to build community by putting relatively inexpensive benches that are permanently installed, but in strategic areas around town to help bring people together. And I think that's something that we could do in Englewood in strategic places around Lafayette Street, around the Central Business District, around McKay Park, on just different areas around town where it will bring people together in a nice, safe way, where there's good lighting around and where it would be a place for older adults, certainly who want to walk, but have a place to rest on their way to or from the Central Business District. So that's something I'd really like to move forward. I'm not sure how to proceed. I know Mr. Volsi plays a big role in that, but I'll work with whoever else has a role. I don't know if the city manager does as well. You probably do. So just let me know how to proceed, because we do have some money for this, and there also are some grants out there that are specifically for things like this, and I'd love to be able to proceed. So thank you.
Sonia.
Janet, why don't you send me an email, and then you and I and Franz and Edward could meet to discuss how we're going to roll it out?
Okay, great. I'd love to do that. Thank you so much. Okay, bye. And don't forget about the community center. It's so important. Thank you.
Mr. Cobb, also on that note, and Sonia, keep in mind there are some old benches on Palisade Avenue where those funds would come into greater hands because of an age-friendly community. Older people, I find, do not sit on those benches because they're getting splinters and they're not really secure. So you may actually want to look at that spot first.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. I'll make a note.
Okay. Next is Reverend Dr. Harper.
Greetings, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
God bless you all. Thank you for your work. I have numerous questions. I'm a lifelong resident of Englewood. Again, Sonia, welcome aboard to you and your team. Congratulations on our budget to everyone. And since we can do a budget like that for 2 years running, I know we can get the community center done. I have been to numerous town halls on this community center in the past, and it's not. So what I need to know, if I can, would you all, each of you, each council person, and the mayor, Mayor Walsh, please just answer this question, and I have others. Do you think Englewood needs to have a community center that would be available to all residents? Just answer yes or no. Just yes or no. Mr. Cohen, Mr. Hamer, Ms. Marin, Mr. Rosenzweig, Mr. Cobb, and Mr. Wiles, can you please answer just yes or no?
I'll answer first. Yes.
Yeah, I'll, you know,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. So then there's no reason that this shouldn't happen. Next question. Who has the final say on the Liberty School issue? Is it the city council or the planning board?
I believe
City council.
city council does, but we're going to have that discussion with the public.
Finally.
I want the public to have whatever they want to have, but the city council technically, as Mr. Bailey said, has it, but we want the public to participate. It's because it's what we all want.
Are we going,
contrary to what everybody's saying, it's what we all want.
Are we going to put Liberty School on a ballot? And then my last question is for the, I guess, for Chief Suffering. During the Jones Road overpass replacement, will there be police directing traffic to and from the north side to the south side? Or are they just going to use the DOT workers?
Mr. Volsi?
I wasn't sure what the question is. Is the police department going to be using DOT workers as opposed to?
Who's going to be directing the traffic?
Who's going to be directing the traffic? That is a major issue for us over here on the island.
That has to go to the police department. They're in charge of traffic maintenance. It goes to the police department. I would assume they would be taking care of the traffic arrangements.
This is not maintenance, this is safety, but that's all right. That's good enough.
Reverend Harper, the traffic coordination all goes through our police department. So they would be enlisting whatever resources necessary in order to redirect traffic.
Okay. And is that going to be 24 hours a day? Because there's traffic going to New York, coming from New York 24 hours a day.
I'd have to follow up to see when, at what point, is it during activity, or if there's just a total shutdown of work, what that would look like, or is there a redirection of traffic? So I can follow up with that.
All right, thank you. Did I hear someone say that they're going to be building more apartments on Englewood South? Is that correct?
Mr. Bailey?
Yes, that's part of the ERA settlement from 2019. In place of the hotel that was supposed to be built.
You know, if I could sell my house and move out of Englewood, I would. Oh my God. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you.
Thank you. Nancy.
Okay, next is Deborah Manning.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yep. All right. I'm Deborah Manning, Lake Street, Englewood. I'd like to first certainly piggyback off of what Ms. Bullock said earlier, and I share concerns that Mrs. Walker had reached out and expressed earlier. It is disturbing. You know, I can't begin to know what each of your jobs are and what you do and the responsibilities that you all share. So I'm not going to even go there. But I mean, it's very, very evident, and it's very, very clear that everyone in the town, and you have said so yourself here this evening, that you also agree that a community center is needed and we all want it. So with that said, you know, there's a lot of talent in this town, people with a lot of good ideas and suggestions. You know, there was earlier talking about, you know, Ms. Major, about fundraising opportunities, ways to create money for this development of the Russell C. Major Community Center. We just need to come together and get this done, you know. You know, and I thank you, Mr. Cohen, for bringing up the whole idea of the community center, but there needs to be more focus. It's like, you know, again, you all have many things on your plate. That's fine. I understand that. But obviously, we sometimes lose sight of what's important. And our children in this community, our seniors in this community, people of my age, I've lived here my entire life. And you know, we had the community, we had the memorial house, and it was a wonderful thing. It was a tiny little spot, but we all had somewhere to go. And there's this place is booming, it's growing. The community is just getting larger and larger, and still our young people, our seniors have nowhere to go. So, you know, if I had more time, I would share more, but thank you for the time you've given me. Please, let's get focused and let's get it done. Thank you.
Next is Tia Jackson.
Yes, good evening. My name is Tia Jackson. I am the owner of TJ Southern Gourmet here in Englewood, New Jersey. Good evening to everyone. I just wanted to make sure I popped on. I am a native of Bergen County. However, I am new to Englewood as a resident and now a business owner, thankfully a year and a half at this point. I just wanted to echo the idea. I'm not really sure. I'm understanding a little bit more about the Englewood needs. And as soon as we opened, TJ's made it a priority to connect with the community, to participate, to make efforts to make sure that we not only provided great quality products and things and food, but to really during this pandemic support the community. So I'm really concerned and trying to understand why the community center, which obviously is shared by so many, doesn't appear to be a priority for the council. And I only can hope, this is just one new voice that I'm adding, that you make this a priority. I believe and trust that this is something you want to get done. I'm still just trying to understand as a new resident and business owner as to why, as was shared, this has not moved further than it has. And I look forward to learning more about it and hope that it gets a lot more attention than it has. Thank you.
Next is Carla Shears Jones.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello?
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good evening. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's good. I just want to piggyback off of pretty much of what everyone else said. I'm 54, so I know about 30 good years I've been hearing about a community center in Englewood, and I'm just hoping that everyone could come together collectively and really work on this and really bring it to fruition, because it is something that is really needed, especially with the pandemic that that we're going through and that we've been through. That could have been like a central focal point for us, with the vaccine, with the testing, with the different programs, food distributions and things of that nature. I just think that community center is a very integral part of the community, and I would love to see it done. Thank you.
Next is Brittany. Sorry, I'm going to butcher this. Gurin.
Yep, pretty close, Garen. Hi, good evening. I just wanted to echo my support as well for the community center. I know, I moved to town here about 15 years ago, and at the time attended a meeting about the proposed community center, and I feel like we're still at that same spot now. So I think, it is time to see that prioritized. And my second question or issue, I guess, I would also like an update on the reopening of the parks, or not the parks, but the playgrounds in the city. I know there's a couple issues for last I heard around that, but I'm hoping we'll see them open soon. Thank you.
Yes, son.
Target date for the reopening is mid-April.
Sorry, I'm writing that down. Next is Martise Mason.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Martise Mason. I'm a former resident, forever participant, and just all around love of this community. So I wanted to call this evening. Thank you all. I'm really thankful to hear that all of you have responded that you do agree that the community center is needed. So I think that's half the issue right there. I do have the question specifically. So thank you, President Cobb, for indicating that you definitely would like this to move forward, and you want the public to participate, which is great. We're doing that here tonight. Could you elaborate on what you see as the risk factor or what's hindering from a from moving forward with a specific date for a town hall to let the public participate?
That'll be under advisement in the next couple of days. So we'll be having something shortly. That's right, Sonia, if I'm saying it right. Shortly, we'll have something that'll be posted on the city website. Our plan is to get that out along with some other information so we could move this forward.
Okay, I did
So
hear her.
that-
Is that you're referring to when she commented that the timeline is going to be posted soon, Sonia? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is there no way we can, is there a reason why we're not being more transparent?
No, there's no lack of transparency here. So what we need to discuss is the draft RFP. And I'll just say that the draft RFP just covers what a proposal would look like for the Liberty School. And part of that, of course, would be something like a community center. So what that is, we put together some specifications on so we could get as many proposals as possible in order to then provide that and have further discussions and then hold a town hall to discuss how to proceed. So I would venture to say we provide the timeline to you all, and I would say in the next 60 days or so that during that time, there would be a town hall included.
Okay, so you're basically just waiting, like you're saying, to collect more RFPs, just to get more proposals out there so that when you do have the town hall, you basically have.
No. The RFP process, it's a request for proposals. We have to put that out there. We have to advertise for it. And once we get all of those back, we then put together a review committee. It's part of the process. Bill, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, then, and just to back up, the RFP, it's an extensive document, by the way. It's not just simply what the use that the city wants to see there. It's proposers have to give their financial information, how they're going to finance the project, references, where they've done it in the past, environmental studies, environmental analysis has to be done. They need to do site examinations to see if there's any remediation. It's an extensive document. It's not simply give us your proposal. There's a lot that goes into it. But yeah, the RFP goes out, has to be published in accordance with law. Then proposers submit their responses to that, along with the backup information they have to provide, such as financials, to show that they have the wherewithal to construct the project, budgets, what they're proposing in terms of construction costs, operating costs, who will pay for what, that type of thing. Not to mention site plan, what their intention or desire is to do with the existing structure. Is it rehab the existing structure, tear down part of it, tear down none of it? There's a lot that goes into it, which is why it takes time, and there has to be, again, it has to be duly published and issued so they can submit their proposals. Then they're then reviewed. I review it from a legal standpoint. Mr. Walsh would be reviewing it from an engineering standpoint. Mr. Slahetka, the planner, who's preparing the RFP, would review it from a planning standpoint. The city manager, of course, the CFO, and the governing body have to review all those components that are going to go into it, because it's a significant undertaking.
That in itself is a 60-day process that we award something like that.
Understood. No, thank you for the details. I guess that's what I was a little bit confused about, because the one that was previously already paid for, through the Dudley, no?
There was no RFP for, that wasn't paid for. That wasn't an RFP. This is the first time we've had the RFP process, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, that's something totally different, something separate, yes.
Okay.
Yes, but check the website and the information will be up there. We want to make sure that we have community, public involvement in this process, but whatever we put together, we have to make sure it's organized, it's constructed the right way so that when people read it and they want to add, add their comments and questions and all that, we got to make sure that it's a tight document. So when they view it, they know that here's what the expectations are. And if they got questions to it, we will take their questions into consideration and work on it. So we're still in that process of kind of tightening things up amongst a conversation right now. So there's some work to do, but we're
Mr.
pushing
Cobb,
forward. Yes.
I just want to clarify a point. We wouldn't have a town hall or a public input in 60 days. It would be out there. This RFP is out to the public, so they can certainly look at it. But we have to have some time to review that within those 60 days and then bring public input after that.
Could I say something?
Yes, Judy.
You know, I've only been on the council for 2 months, so but to those of you that seem so angry, this is the closest we've ever been to resolving this. You keep hearing it over and over again, and we keep listening. But there was an RFP voted upon, which was the beginning of the process. Now, it's not that simple. It's going to be done. You know, we're past step one. We're just waiting now to be able to release, you know, where we are. And I just wish that the people that are so angry would listen more and stop, you know, criticizing this council. As I say, I've only been here for 2 months. But these people that are working for you really care about what they're doing, and we are doing things, but we have to do them legally, thoughtfully. And as I say, when you heard that the money was allotted for an RFP, that was a very, very big step. That means something is going to happen. So please trust in the people you elected. I know it's been years. I've been living here for a very long time, and I've heard the same things you have. But I believe that this time it's going to happen.
Thank you. Nancy.
I have several people who've raised their hand a second time.
We can't. It's 11. It's almost 11:30, and we still got to go to closed session.
The only person new on here, I believe, I just want to double check. I want to make sure they did not raise their hand.
I'm sorry, but we have to go to closed session. We have some stuff that we have to deal with.
There is one person new on this list. If you'd like, I can call on them. Kia Miller.
Huh?
Kia Miller.
Yep.
I don't know why this keeps doing this. It wants to promote people to panelists. Ms. Miller, I'm going to promote you to panelist, but if I do that, it's going to put you on video. Please let me know if you're okay with that. Nope. Lowered their hand. Okay.
Okay, let's go.
Oh,
Bill.
wait, their hand again. No, took their hand down.
Let's go. Bill, we're going to
Okay.
closed session. Thank you.
Be resolved by the governing body of the city of Englewood that it meet in closed session pursuant to subsections 7 and 8 to discuss matters involving litigation, personnel, contracts, and negotiations of matters within the attorney-client privilege, and be it further resolved, the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public upon taking final action thereon, provided it does not constitute an undue invasion of privacy or violate the attorney-client privilege. And be it further resolved that although the council will return to open session, it is not envisioned it will take any action at that time and is merely returning to open session to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, the closed session was sent today, right?
Yes.
We need a motion to go into closed session, Bill?
Yep.
We need a motion and a second to go into closed session.
So moved.
I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're going into closed session.
Thank you.
Aye.
Good night.